Hello, everyone. This is Nicholas Luna, the host of the Practical Entrepreneur Show, a show that shares local entrepreneur stories about their journeys and success about being a small business owner. And welcome back to the show. This is episode number 31 with Lupita Martinez. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist who practices in Southern California. I met her actually at the Facebook Level Up event in Playa del Rey at the Facebook headquarters. And we started chatting about, I started chatting about insurance. She started chatting about, her practice, and I was educating her about insurance, and, kept in touch. And here we are. We record a podcast. She's an expert in imposter syndrome. So if you know anyone that may suffer from this, or if you suffer from imposter syndrome yourself, this will be a great podcast for you to listen to and see what you can do to help you get over imposter syndrome. Enjoy the show. Let me introduce you to our guest for today. It is Lupita. We actually met at the Facebook Live event.
Yes.
That was it 2 months ago?
It might have been.
That's 2 months ago.
Has it been 2 months ago? Dang. Wow. That was a really long time ago.
So, we started chatting because she is a behavioral health therapist. And I'm sorry, that's how from insurance, it's like medical provider, behavioral health.
I'm like, what? I've never really heard of that term.
Yeah, right?
I hear it, but it's more ABA, not necessarily mental health, because they're two different kind of realms. But okay.
That's how I
different perspective.
So, but we are here to kind of chat as far as what I want to ask you a lot is about the imposter syndrome, because you post a lot about that. And what I think of an imposter is something completely different from what you post. So I'm like, I definitely want to start asking about that. But before we get started, go ahead and give us a little background, who you are, what's your favorite taco. If you don't like tacos, what's your favorite food? And, give us a little origin stories, like, comic book one of Lupita.
Okay. So I was raised in Inglewood, but I moved around a lot. So all over the South Bay LA area. So Inglewood, Hawthorne, Gardena. I'm currently around the Lawndale, Torrance area as well. So I'm still in the South Bay, but I did move away for college.
Okay.
I moved away to UC Berkeley, or the Berkeley area, for the 4 years.
Saw that license plate.
Yeah, of course. I got to
Bears.
represent. Go Bears. So yeah, I moved back and I decided to actually live at home to save a lot of money, obviously, because education can sometimes not be so affordable.
Yeah.
And so I went to Dominguez Hills and I went there for my master's, and I was working nonprofit for about 3 or 4 years before I became licensed. And the whole private practice world really just fell on my lap, to be quite honest. Okay. I didn't actually plan to go into private practice right after getting licensed. It was almost kind of this really nice serendipitous moment.
Got it.
Where I was actually really burnt out. Overworked. I was driving from Rancho to Downey to Southgate, back to Pomona. I was all over the place, and it's because I'm bilingual. And because I'm bilingual, and you don't see a lot of bilingual therapists, guess what happens?
Yeah.
Right?
You get bounced around a lot.
Definitely.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Exactly. So my caseload was huge. As much as I could advocate for myself, it was still not really enough. So I ended up becoming very burnt out, and I had to take some time off work. And during that time, I was blessed with being able to have that time. I was even in short-term disability, went to my own therapist for help. And she actually motivated me. And it took me a while to actually convince myself to take that time off, to be quite honest. Because again, you think of yourself like, no, I can do this, until you realize no, you can't really do this. And so I took the time off. Closer to the dates, I recognized that I was starting to get anxious again going back to work, and I recognized that it just wasn't for me at that time. Maybe about a couple days in between that, I was previously working with a contracted clinician or a clinician as a contracted provider.
Okay.
And he emailed me and was like, "Hey, Lupita, I actually outgrew my office, and I can totally put in a good word for you if you'd like to rent out that office that I was currently renting out."
Okay.
And so this happened within a couple of weeks. within that week. I think he might have emailed me on a Wednesday, or I think he might have even texted me on a Wednesday, told me I had to tell him by Friday. And so I had 2 days to really think about whether I was going to quit my full-time job. Yes.
It's a big commitment.
Huge commitment.
2 days.
Yes.
How'd you do that?
And that's not me, right? I am a planner. I tend to have, long-time goals and short-time goals. And so this was definitely a leap of faith for myself. Something very out of character. And ultimately I decided, I leaned a lot on my partner and my parents and asked them for their own kind of perspective. And a lot of them were like, no, this is too risky. Other ones were like, well, no, this is what you've been wanting to do. It just kind of came sooner than you thought. But I made the decision and I took the leap 2 days later.
Nice. Question. Did your intuition play a role in making that decision so quickly?
Oh, yes. And I talk about intuition a lot when I'm with clients, because sometimes our intuition can be mistaken for fear or mistaken for this weird gut feeling that you get when you're really anxious or nervous. And so when we talk about that gut feeling, sometimes it can be confused, right? And for myself, this was probably one of the first times that I've really recognized that it was a little bit of both, right? You have the intuition, but you also have that nervousness. And it was about really coasting through that feeling and really letting go.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Very cool. You forgot probably the most important question. What's your favorite food?
Oh, man. So tacos are actually a big deal. So much so that that I'm actually going to have tacos for my wedding.
Nice.
Yeah.
What kind of tacos?
Yeah.
That's important.
Yes. And so, what kind of tacos?
What kind of tacos?
So I love al pastor tacos.
Okay.
From the trompo too.
Okay.
Yes. It gets me very excited. So I've been looking for a taquiza that has a trompo, because most taquizas that go at home don't necessarily have a trompo, right? Yeah. And so if there's anyone out there that has a taquiza with a trompo,
I may know a few people that have that. If you're watching this, contact her.
Contact me. My wedding will be around December time, and I need myself a taco man.
Got it. Yeah. What's part of town?
Chino. So we'll be in Chino Hills.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Take note of that, people. Cool. So So taking a leap is pretty. 2 days. That's like. Yeah, that's. I just myself just thinking about that. I gotta make a decision in 2 days. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of pressure. And
yes.
And if that's something that you've always wanted to do, and it kind of came up, and you're just like, people always talk about luck. I don't think luck exists. Sometimes every now and then you'll get a little what they call lucky. Mm-hmm. I think preparation and opportunity meets is luck, So at the time, at the time this opportunity came up, you must have felt prepared. I'm assuming, or you weren't prepared. Tell me.
I was definitely not prepared.
Okay. I love this.
I'm still learning as I go, to be quite honest. I've been meeting a lot of other clinicians who have been so helpful. A lot of my clinicians of color have been very much, supportive, and they'll even reach out to me, right? They see my efforts online, and they'll reach out to me and ask me, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. So I have a lot of really nice, people. Like, okay. I've even met people, or not met people that I've known, maybe in passing, or acquaintances from my past in Berkeley or things like that, okay. who will come up to me and really offer their services and offer their support, which is really nice. It's a really nice, it gives me that reminder, right, that humanity can be very kind, and humanity can be very supportive if you really allow them to. So
yeah, because sometimes we feel that humanity isn't kind, mm-hmm. And I think as a Latino community, it's like I had this conversation with other people where it almost felt like 10 years ago, more Latinos were like real competitive with each other, right? We were like, nah, I need to come up first, and then I can help you. Or like, nah, I'm trying to beat you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I got the 20-inch rims on my car first. And like,
for sure. La envidia.
Yeah.
Es la envidia, yeah.
And I'm just like, all right. But now I'm starting to see a little bit more of a shift where a lot of people are working together, a lot of people are collaborating, which is how it's supposed to be. Because that's how, when you work together as a group, you get stuff done. You can make a lot of noise and be very effective, and your execution's a lot easier when you work as a team. And I always kind of look back to sports where teams win championships. Yes, you'll have some times where if you get some key individuals on your team and it makes a big difference, but a good team beats a good team that plays together and plays as a team will always be a team of like superstars.
For sure.
Because sometimes superstars' egos get in the way, right? But I'm glad that you stated that your people of color were helping you out with your office, because when you open up, when you do anything on your own, it's really scary. Like you're just like, all right, what do I expect? What do like when the electricity bill comes,
or even just like filing for a business, right? You don't know who
business
teaches
licenses.
you how to do business licenses, right? And who talks to you about these things, and how do you find out? So obviously, there's Google, but then even Google sometimes, it goes over your head if you don't really know. And so so many different blessings with groups on Facebook that I'm in, right? There's Latinx therapists. There was South Bay therapists as well. A lot of different groups that really, they're open to your questions, and no question's really a dumb question. You can even search, and there's other questions there and answers already for you. So you can cross-reference with their answers and what you find. And so you do have to play a lot of like investigating kind of skill, use your investigating skills. But overall, it's really been a nice collaborative experience. And even now I'm still learning, right? I'm a sole proprietor looking into being a corporation and hopefully eventually becoming bigger. So yeah, it's always going to be a learning in progress, right?
Cool. It's true. You're always learning. Yeah, you always have to be a student. What does it say? I think when you stop becoming a student is when you stop growing. So this is what I really want to dive into, because we talk a lot about imposter syndrome. Now, if you're like me, average person, who sees things kind of like face value, you say imposter, I'm like, he's an imposter. He says that, but he's not that. But it's a little different. Can you kind of give a little brief description of imposter syndrome, and then I'm going to ask you questions as you start explaining it, because I think my questions will be very common to like everyone else's, because I don't know if I suffer from it. I don't think I do, but probably after you explain it, I'm probably like, oh, maybe I do. So give us a little kind of breakdown of imposter syndrome.
Yeah. So imposter syndrome is a phenomenon that happens to about 70% of the human world, right? So 70% of people will have an experience with imposter syndrome at least one time in their life. And what this means is when you're really experiencing a moment where your success doesn't really feel true to you. It feels like you either maybe you were deceitful, and maybe you were trying to trick people into thinking you were this awesome person, right? Or sometimes you feel like it's just luck, as you mentioned earlier, right? Things just kind of come out of luck, and so you don't really give yourself the credit. And so not giving yourself the credit for all the hard work that you do, that is imposter syndrome. Being able to not recognize that you are actually of value and that you are actually worth all the work that you've done, that's imposter syndrome. And you see that a lot with people of color, right? You see that a lot with marginalized populations, right? LGBTQ, women, all these different marginalized populations who just struggle with really giving themselves the credit for all the work that they do. And this comes a lot with, the experience that you get either culturally or just in society, right? People pressure you into being a certain type of way because of media or whatnot. And so as soon as you achieve something, right, I've been told multiple times, right, there's a lot of microaggressions and even blatant overt racism, right? You went to UC Berkeley, right? What? You're from Inglewood and you went to UC Berkeley, right? So you see a lot of that, and that really it sticks to you. Right? So all these different experiences that you are either exposed to or have been told indirectly, all those experiences really, really, they kind of, take home inside you. And so these are experiences where over time you start to really believe them. And even sometimes where you know that's not true, but it's still your automatic kind of thought, right? You're still like, oh, well, that was just luck.
Wow. Okay.
Tell me.
That was
Yes?
a lot. That was a lot. The thing that got me was when you say that, oh, you went to Inglewood? Oh, you went to UC Berkeley? Because I've kind of dealt with that in a way. Now, me being who I am, being very alpha, very competitive, I usually have some sort of a witty comeback or something very to like make a point like, did you ever doubt me? Right? So where I would get, I don't think, I think for me, what I get a lot is more than someone kind of like, oh, you went there. I actually get the opposite. You're like, oh, you must have had it nice. I used to, not till this day. Actually, maybe a little bit to this day. People think that I came from money.
I love your laugh.
I'm like, what gave you that idea? Like, I had money. Like, that my parents had money. Like, I drove a 1968 Bug for like 6 years, for all of college, for sure. And it wasn't until I almost graduated I bought a new car, and I bought a new used car because I needed it because I was going to be commuting. So, I mean, people assume, right? Maybe the way I carried myself. I'm not 100% sure, but I did not come from money. I did not come from money. Just to let you know, I have really good money habits. That, in a moment's notice, if I needed to do something, I have money to, go courtside for a Laker game, go to a Hamilton play, travel the world. But I sacrifice a lot. So I don't think I suffer from imposter syndrome in this sense, because I'm like, no, it took me.
You give yourself that credit.
Yeah, no, I give myself that credit because for a year, from May 2007 to May 2008, I didn't have a car for a year in LA. No, I didn't not have a car because I got my license suspended because I got a DUI, which a lot of people would ask. I'm like, and I remember that people were like, oh, you don't have a car? I'm like, yes, I don't have a car.
And you were in LA, right?
Yeah.
And you're in LA.
You're in LA, you don't have a car? And I'm like, I chose not to have a car. And at that time, I had a lot of time. So I took advantage of it. I read a lot of books. But the main thing I did is because I couldn't afford a car payment and I couldn't pay my rent. So I had to make a decision. Made a decision to sell my car, and then I'm getting myself out of debt. Best thing that could have ever happened to me. So when someone says like, "Oh," it's like, "No, I'm not rich." I go, "Nor was I ever rich. I'm really good with my money. I'm very, very good with my money." So
something you don't really learn, right?
You don't learn. I think I realized, I don't know. Tell me what you've experienced, but I think from like 21 to 25 is probably like the worst. You make the worst financial decisions, right? Because
you're like YOLO.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been fairly responsible. I always paid my stuff, but like I got myself into a little hole that I just couldn't get out of, But have you experienced that with, like young people from 21, 25?
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
yes, definitely. And this is actually the group that I specialize with,
Got
right?
it.
Young professionals and college students. And so you see a lot of individuals who may have, issues with being able to manage time, obviously, and money, right?
Okay.
And so these are huge core components to why they feel a certain way, right? Why they feel anxious and why they feel like, they might be a failure, which goes back to the imposter syndrome, right? You have this like expectation for yourself. You don't meet that expectation, and because you don't, now you feel like a complete failure.
Okay.
Right? And that's where it really shines through. You see that a lot in that population.
Now, for example, like I'm pretty good at accepting of what I've done, and I don't know if it's because I've been able to. I've always kind of been like that, even since I was like really small. But like for someone who doesn't have like that's going through that, right? How do you help them cope and like kind of like get over that hump and like, no, you worked hard. You've earned this.
So my theoretical orientation is based on what is called cognitive behavioral therapy. And so you really think about how your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors they're all interrelated in some way or another,
Okay.
right? And these automatic thoughts that we have, everyone has them, right? And they all are somehow influenced by either our experiences or genetics or things, whatever it is that's going on, those automatic thoughts are there.
Okay.
Now, I'm sure that you've used the word should, right?
Yeah.
I should have gone to the store. Oh, this should have been it, right? These expectations, these should statements are a prime example of how it really affects with this whole experience with imposter syndrome.
Okay.
Or even labeling yourself like, oh, I'm such a loser, right? Or, I'm a failure. And like, so calling yourself names, that really goes deep into your core.
Okay.
And so part of these automatic thoughts that I'm talking about, they literally come out of your mouth. I say this a lot in therapy where even with me, right, I'm walking and my bedroom's pretty small and I'll walk and sometimes I'll hit myself in the corner of the bed and I'm like, mensa.
Okay.
Right. And I automatically call myself a mensa. But then I have to reframe and recognize, well, no, I'm not a mensa. I just hit myself in the corner of the bed. But it doesn't actually define who I am. Right. And so being able to separate the two.
Okay.
And so going back into these automatic thoughts, we have core beliefs. And these are the core beliefs that really, are basically creating this automatic thought.
Okay.
Right. And they are based on all these different experiences. And so we really dig deep into all of this, recognize what those core beliefs are and how we can convince ourselves that these core beliefs are not necessarily true. Sometimes people don't even know those core beliefs are really there. And so it really comes from really identifying what your thinking pattern looks like and really working on yourself and as an individual, right? So
Okay.
a lot of gratitude journaling, a lot of self-love and self-esteem building exercises, a lot of the reframing and just being able to just understand who you are and not necessarily feel like you have achieved something if someone celebrates you,
Okay.
but instead you celebrating yourself.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's very helpful. I like that tip. Now, as soon as you said when you hit yourself in the corner and you called yourself a mensa, right? The first thing I thought of was my fiance.
Fiance, you listening?
I hope you're listening to this. I might make this clip just for you. Now, this is for the men, or the fellas, the guys.
Oh, you're trying to bring gender in here, huh?
No.
Okay.
This. I think this happens a lot to us.
Okay.
Okay. We're doing our thing. Doesn't matter what we're doing, right? We're driving, we're at the house on our cell phone, we're watching TV. Our spouse, female spouse, tells us to do something. Okay. I'm gonna give you a prime example.
Oh, I know where you're going.
I know you. You know where I'm going, and I'm doing this for the fellas, okay? Because it's something that we have to deal with, right? Because I know what my core belief is. I'm driving. We're going to a destination. I missed the turn, right? Supposed to go left. I passed it, and I went right. You're so dumb. You're the dumbest person. I can't believe you missed that turn. My core belief's like, so are you really going to tell me that I'm the dumbest person because I passed the street on an area that I've never been to? Mm-hmm. So I'm at that moment, right? Like when I'm being insulted, my core belief is being challenged. Mm-hmm. How do the fellas and myself deal with that?
Deal with it. I think just even being able to recognize, like, okay, she needs to probably cool down, right? Obviously, her automatic response is something that's very much deeper than what she just said, right? She's probably, anxious because you're running late, or she's a punctual person. And so recognizing that she probably needs to cool down a little bit before you can even respond.
Okay.
But after that, maybe even really checking her and saying, hey, I made a mistake. It doesn't define me. I didn't make the turn that you wanted to, but I'm wondering what's going on with you.
Oh, dang. I know from saying that, I've learned through therapy, don't address it at that moment.
Oh, there you go. And it depends on the person, right? So
I'm like,
for you and your couple or your partner, is it something that you need to address right now, or is it worth, kind of putting aside for a little bit?
Fellas, avoid the fight. Avoid the fight. So I know. Okay, cool. So now I know. That makes a lot of sense. So she's anxious or late, or there's something in her that's freaking her out, in the sense that I made this turn that's delaying us to get there. Okay, cool. So now I understand a little bit more of her. I know how to deal with it on my deal with it now because of therapy. Like you never ever, if there's an argument's about to start, you don't address it at that moment because it's just
Yeah. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in, right?
and it's just nothing gets done, right? But when you're just like on the bed, relaxing, 10 minutes before you're going to sleep, the guards are down.
But that's also a really bad time to bring it up. Before bed?
No, dude, 6, it's like SEAL Team 6. The other day when you insulted me and you told me that I was the dumbest person because I made a left versus making a right, that really hurt my feelings. Can you not do that? Okay. That's what you gotta do, fellas. Don't.
Listen to this guy.
Don't. It's just be patient. That little skill will save you tons of headache, anxiety, stress. Especially if you're like, I think as I've gotten older, I'm in pretty good health, but my heart, I still like, do I really want to get a heart attack over a left and right hand turn? Yeah, I'm not going to do that. So that's why I've learned these skills to kind of prevent from anything major happening. So cool. I'm glad I asked you that question because that's very, it's always something like, oh, there's something that's affecting her that caused her to react in that way, or in anyone, just people, right? Like it's not just my spouse. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, babe. Love you. But just in general, whenever someone's reacting that way, it's something with them.
Something definitely with them, not with you at all.
Okay, cool. That I can breathe. Okay, now you said your client age range is usually 21 to 25.
So it actually ranges anywhere from, I think my youngest is probably 18. My oldest is about 35.
Okay.
Yeah, so anywhere from 18 to 35. And that's because sometimes, young professionals don't necessarily start their profession right away, right after college. It could have been that they've taken some time off in between their bachelor's and their master's or whatever the case may be. And so I see a lot of people that may just be starting their profession and they're in their 30s, right? And so it's really just whoever has started their profession and maybe those transitions as well.
Okay. Now, a lot of people who listen to the show are either entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, or eventually want to, start their own thing. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs take on a lot of stress because they want to deliver, right? It's delivering is probably my number one thing. It's like, I just want to deliver. I don't care. Just deliver. And I get hyper focused on certain things, and I was like, I can't. As it's what's done, and I deliver. I can relax. Now, what advice can you give to someone or to anyone that has that? Because I recently found out that one of my really close friends got diabetes, and a lot of it was due to the stress. Right? So it wasn't really like
and high blood pressure too,
and their eating or anything like that. And what's a good technique, or what's a healthy exercise that someone can do to help them, reduce their anxiety to be able to manage their stress a little bit better, who's always wanting to deliver?
Yes, that's actually something that I preach a lot to my clients, right? Being able to make sure that whatever it is, right, you want to deliver, but you can't necessarily deliver if you are having some sort of a debilitating symptom, right? You can't deliver if you have migraines every so often, or you can't deliver if you feel like your heart's palpitating out of nowhere and you're hyperventilating. You can't necessarily deliver if you don't take care of yourself. And so being able to maybe even prioritize and create a routine for yourself. And I love that the entrepreneurs that I've been meeting, they have, right? They're able to have the luxury of somewhat, creating their own schedule. And so being able to prioritize a routine that takes care of themselves first, right? So whether that's an exercising routine, gratitude journaling, meditation, even going on really like nice slow walks every now and then, taking baths. You don't need to actually purchase anything. You can literally do some of these things at home.
Okay.
So being able to just manage that stress, because we know that with stress, cortisol is released into your bloodstream, which usually affects this blood pressure and this diabetes and all these different symptoms that happen to our bodies. So if we're able to regulate that cortisol level by doing these exercises, because even gratitude journaling, right? Who thinks that gratitude journaling will actually create some sort of like a regulation in your body somehow? But there's so much research on how gratitude journaling, even now, my alma mater has been able to do a lot of research on how gratitude journaling really affects with improving mood and self-esteem, because you're thinking about all these positive things that have happened, which end up reducing the negative things that you're thinking about, which end up reducing those levels of cortisol. So it indirectly helps with being able to just maintain and manage your mood.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So it's really, really cool stuff.
So that's awesome. Gratitude journaling. Oh, I'm so not in this frame. I never, when you're, the first thing, when you start talking about how gratitude helps you regulate, when I meditate and that I take that deep breath and then goosebumps, is that something happened to me physically?
Likely, because a lot of these things happen very much like they're long-term benefits, but even in the moments, and you see that a lot of like your heart rate maybe will kind of manage itself, so it's no longer as elevated as it was before, or things like that. So it could be that. I'm not 100% sure. We would probably need to do a lot of like those connections that they do.
Oh my
and
God,
whatnot.
This is awesome. I'm like, my
so
brain's
cool.
going. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you,
No.
I'm so like, gratitude journaling is good for your health. Oh my goodness. Like, I want to start writing down gratitude, like a journal right now, and like things that I'm grateful for, because I think I know, because from meditating and that moment, just like relaxed and positive affirmations, like, you got this, you're going to get this done. And because I know when you write things down, it's easier to remember, and it gets
it
done,
gets
right?
done a lot quicker. I say that so much because people try to remember things and they just have them in their head, and I'm like, your body literally will repeat that unconsciously so that you remember. Like, do you really want to put yourself in such a draining position?
Oh, talking about that, because
Huge fan of this.
yes, because sometimes, because we're like, for myself, I'll get super productive and I'm like, I write it down, I get it done. But sometimes I'm like, if I don't only have like 3 things to do, I'm like, I'm going to write down 3 things, right? How does someone stay consistent doing that? How can what advice would you give someone to be able to be consistent, to consistently write down everything that they need to do every single day?
Oh, I see. I was like, where are you going with that? Yeah. So I think just creating that, like I said, that routine, using something, right? I personally use my planner, and my planner is my life. Just recently I started using my phone, but I still don't get the same gratifying feeling of being able to cross things out, right?
You're done.
Yes. And using, I'm a huge nerd of like color coordinating and stickers and things like that. So find what you want, right? Find what feels right for you, because what feels right for me doesn't necessarily feel right for the next person.
Okay.
For me, I love creating, really cool little color coordinated stuff in my planner. That's paper, that's physical. But maybe some people are a lot more, connected with their phones. They feel like that's a little bit more realistic for them, or maybe they're on their Outlook quite more often. And so that might work for them. And so find what works for you. And then instead of really trying to force yourself into some little box that someone told you to do.
Got it. Makes sense. Okay, cool. Because a lot of times we're like, and I've seen this with a lot of people. And I'm going to use the gym, because I think the gym is something that everyone can kind of relate to, and you can physically see the changes. So once someone goes to the gym, they start going to the gym, they get a trainer, they start eating right, they're getting results, and they, let's say 6 months in, they get the results that they want, right? Like, yeah, I did it, right? And then they feel like, I don't need to do all the stuff anymore that I did for the last 6 months to maintain this. And they kind of go back to old habits, right? Like, it's, and you see that physically.
Yes. You see that emotionally too in therapy.
Okay.
Yes, you definitely do. And I personally, like, I tell my clients, my job is for you to fire me. Like, even though you don't truly believe it, right? Like, my job is for you to fire me, for you to not necessarily need me, and for you to be able to create this routine from now forward, not
Okay.
from now until 6 months from now, or not from now and like a couple of months from now. Like, you want to be able to create this thing for yourself, because then, the likelihood of you returning may be for something completely different, maybe not what we're working on right now.
Okay.
Because these are things that you can really just maintain on your own. And we want to be able to do more preventative care than it is really crisis management, right?
Which is a lot easier to do. Preventative care is simpler. It's you can work at ease. When you're at crisis, it's like 911, right? Like it's like,
And you feel so much happier, right? Because you're like, okay, like
Yeah.
I'm really taking care of myself, like my whole self, right? When you
Yeah.
look at your holistic self, like, you're eating, you're exercising, and your mental health, and all the other things that come with it.
Got it. Now we're gonna get a little geeky because we were chatting before. I love to ask all my guests, since now that you're self-employed, how have you addressed your health insurance needs? We've talked about that, but kind of give us a little. We were talking about how it was super complicated for you.
Yes, it was so complicated. When I was not working as much, I had Covered California, and applying for Covered California was a pain in the butt. I totally took this whole getting health insurance from my employer for granted. Like, I had no idea how complicated it was. And I was talking to you about it, and you're like, oh, it's a piece of cake. And I'm like, well, yeah, because this is what you do for a living.
Right?
Whereas for myself, like, I felt like I was probably even doing unnecessary applications online. I was probably doing, things that I didn't necessarily need to do, but I was still putting all of my personal information. I'm sure it's like floating around the internet all over the place where it probably doesn't need to be. But yeah, now, it's a lot harder because you have to recognize that you may not necessarily have those benefits as you did when you were employee versus now that you're on your own. And so, deductibles might be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And co-payments are probably ridiculous. And, your premiums are super ridiculous. And if you don't know those words, yeah, even that itself, right? You learn all this stuff being an entrepreneur, because I had no idea what all these things were. Right? You have to figure it out on your own, or ask people questions, ask you questions, right?
Exactly, because it's super overwhelming. And I was telling Lupita, I was like, I used to feel bad to charge an enrollment fee, and now that I'm hearing it from a professional, and trust me, you're not the only one, and you won't be the last one, because insurance will be confusing to the end of time. Now imagine someone whose second language was English. They're really not that comfortable with technology. It is overwhelming to the point where you don't move. So, all you people out there who have heard that, if you guys need help with your health insurance, of course, you reach out to me. I make your life so much easier. My fee is minimal to the time and the anxiety and the headache that you get from trying to apply. Perfect example. So, we talked about a lot of stuff. I really like the gratitude journal. I really like the breakdown of the imposter syndrome. Let's have a little fun. Did you watch Game of Thrones?
I did, but I'm very terrible with names, so I might have to describe things rather than actually tell you names.
When did you start watching Game of Thrones? What season?
Since the beginning.
Oh,
Yeah.
since the beginning.
Yeah, but I'm that terrible with names. I'm good with faces.
Okay. So I started season 4.
Oh.
I binge watched season 1 through 3, caught up to season 4.
Wow.
From there, I was like anti Game of Thrones. Anything that my old roommate used to watch, I'd be like, nah, it's probably nerdy. And I'm really not a fan of, I really don't watch a lot of TVs aside from sports. So that's why I was like,
see.
Yeah, right? Go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers.
But I really got into Game of Thrones because my fiance got into Game of Thrones. And anything that she gets into, I by default get into.
Actually, that's how I got into Game of Thrones, to be honest, because of my partner.
Oh, yeah. So I just was like, all right, so this is how it's going to be now. And I don't watch TV. She watches a ton of television, so I end up watching the shows that she watches. But I really liked Game of Thrones. It was a very well-written show. It's just, a lot of the times, people would always say, oh, HBO shows, if it has a lot of sex, it's going to be do really good. This one, I mean, it had its moments, but the writing and the development of characters was so good. It just captivated you.
Yes.
Yeah, there were some good fighting scenes, but it wasn't all fighting scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your favorite house?
Ooh, okay. I would say, who's the dragon lady?
Targaryen.
Yeah, I really liked the way that her character was kind of presented. I feel that there was this really interesting twist. You see a lot of her experience in like love and relationships, and how, you know, her betrayal and all the different things that she experienced, how it all kind of shifted after a while towards the end. But you see that a lot in real life, right? Right? Where love just kind of makes you do some really intense things, maybe to not that extreme,
right?
But at the same time, you know, you see this relationship between her and the dude, what's his name?
Jon Snow?
Yes, Jon Snow. So you see that relationship between the two, and the fact that he had to do what he needed to do at the end, right? That to me was like, wow. But she's also a really cool, badass person, so I'm all about that.
Gotcha. She was okay.
Really?
My opinion.
Well, the other chick too, the little girl, the one that she
Arya?
was badass.
I loved Arya.
Yes.
She's G.
So I actually was not fond of her at first.
No?
I just felt like
I liked her from the beginning.
No.
I like that little look that she would give like to the little boy, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna fuck your ass up." That was the best. It was like, yeah, do your thing, right? She's like,
after a while,
you want to challenge me?
Yeah.
Watch me. Wait till you fall asleep, or like, I'm gonna catch you slipping. You know.
Yeah.
So I like that attitude. It's like they have a chip on their shoulder.
Yes. I really liked. So I guess, you know, it would be between her and that her family and the other one, the Targaryen. You said, right?
Yeah, Targaryen and the Starks. Then
the Starks. Yeah, between those, because the Starks were really, really badass as well, especially her, because her sister, her sister, I was not down with.
Yeah, Sansa Stark wasn't my fave. Wasn't. So my favorite is two. And I think it's cliche, House Stark, but it's very close between House Stark and House Lannister.
What? Tell me why.
Because they always pay their debts.
Oh, I like that.
I
didn't even see that.
Oh,
That's
man.
a good
I love
perspective.
that saying, but it's very business. It's like, look, man, this is business. We're going to do this.
I'm like, yeah.
We're gonna do this. You're going to get this. We're going to get this.
Mind blown right now. Yeah.
They always pay their debts. And if you think about it, they're still in charge after the whole thing. You know, Tyrion Lannister is the counsel to the king of the 6 kingdoms, because Sansa and her...
I see that eye roll.
Man,
but you know what, though? Regardless of all the things that she did, I really like that house as well, because it's a bunch of really like badass mujeres in there too, right?
It's true. You know, I'm not going to take any credit from her because she went through a lot as far as through the show.
Yeah,
and,
trauma.
A lot of trauma. And she has her reasons to be like that. But I just think she was just a little snobby.
I could see that.
You know, but I'm like, whatever, it's a show. You know, but I think I've met people like that in life. They kind of like
Se creen muy muy?
Yeah. Like, bring it down a notch. So, yeah. And then I like the House Stark. And especially like a character like Jon Snow, right? It wasn't given to him. He actually earned to be... He earned to be the king of the 7 kingdoms. He had the actual right to be the king of the 7 kingdoms. And then they just treated him like a bad habit and sent him to the north. The real north.
The real north.
I don't know. That's why it's kind of like, man, you do the right thing all your life.
They have fun in the north anyway, though.
They do. And he met this love of his life.
Yeah.
When they killed his squeeze.
Oh.
Do you remember when they killed the squeeze? Remember the little kid? The little kid looked at him like, got you, bro. I'm like,
I forgot about that.
He's like 11, 12 years old, right? I'm like, damn, kid. Like, that's all good. But, I mean, alrighty. Well, this talk was super useful. I hope people who are listening to this and watch some of this, took in some information as far as imposter syndrome, dealing with anxiety, having a gratitude journal, doing stuff to help you manage your life a little bit better. I don't remember all of it, but the best thing is that I get to re-listen to it and get to hear it again. And is there anything that you would want to tell someone, like right now? Like, let's just say they're driving and they're dealing with a lot of anxiety. What's a great exercise that they can do at the moment that will help them reduce their anxiety?
Well, if they're driving and they are experiencing anxiety, I would highly recommend for you to pull over.
Okay.
If you do pull over, just give yourself 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever it is that you need. Give yourself that space. Maybe even take some deep breaths. And when you take those deep breaths, make sure that you're not necessarily, having shallow breathing. So don't breathe in and have your chest move the most. You want your stomach to move the most, right? So you're doing a lot of belly breathing. And this will help to just kind of control that anxiety a little bit before you go back on the road. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing when I was working nonprofits that kind of helped me go through my day was creating a playlist, right? I love my playlists. Spotify is my jam. And I have playlists that have songs that really elicit a lot of happy feelings for me. And so if you are really big on music, create those playlists for you, right? Whenever you have, a sunny day, think of songs that really remind you of that sunny day and put a playlist for yourself and listen to that playlist whenever you're having a hard time. Every now and then too, if you have songs that make you laugh, right? Every now and then, if I listen to La Chona,
yes,
it makes me crack up, right? And so, just being able to have certain songs that elicit certain feelings, use that to your advantage and use that during your commute to just kind of control that mindset and keep your mind more in other things that aren't necessarily creating that anxiety for you.
Got it. That's solid advice, Lupita. Thank you so much for coming over here. I hope you enjoyed the view.
Yes, it's such a beautiful view. And if anyone has any questions as far as...
Yes, what are your handles?
Yes, if anyone has any questions in regards to imposter syndrome or is looking for a therapist in the Gardena, South Bay LA area, I also do immigration evaluations. And my Instagram handle is Therapy of the Sun. So Terapia del Sol, but Therapy of the Sun. And you can also find me on Facebook. And my website is also www.therapyofthesun.com.
Very nice. This has been awesome, Lupita. Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed.